welcome to the Habibis podcast. Three game developers drinking good Arab tea. I'm your host, Fawzi Mesmar.
And I'm Osama Dorias.
And I'm Rami Ismail. Good to have you back, Fawzi.
Oh, it's good to be back.
We missed you so much. We were going to start talking last episode about some game industry stuff, and we were like, we can't have this talk without Fawzi.
It doesn't work. No. So instead, we just talked about emails.
For a second, I was like, what's up with all the emails we're getting out of the blue? All of those emails, I was like, you guys want emails? Here's emails. I'm like, oh, wow. Osama's
Finally got what he wanted.
Finally
has landed.
My pleas.
It's nice. It was good. It was good to see so many emails.
It's good to see so many emails.
Yes.
I hope you're happy, Osama. I read all of them.
I'm smiling ear to ear. I've already read all of them. Are you kidding? I replied to all of them.
That's cool. Now I'll talk about all industry stuff this time around then.
Yeah, we can talk video games and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Who wants to start?
I want to talk about two games. First game is a game that you guys touched upon last week. So I heard Rami talking about the Artful Escape.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
And I was I want to talk about the Artful Escape. So I'm going to bring it up again this week.
Should have emailed.
Should have emailed. I wrote in the Discord if that counts.
Yeah. It counts.
It counts. Man, what a game! So
yeah, right.
As a guitar player, that game awoken a feeling in me that I never knew I had. That I wanted to rock out with aliens on a galactic level stage.
Life goals.
No, as I was playing this game, I was starting to put together the persona of who made it, so to speak. I know nothing about this game. I just started Game Pass and saw it, and I thought, this is pretty cool, and I wanted to play it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started playing it, the mechanics are pretty simple. We just, it's a platformer to some extent. But, the gamey parts of the game, there's something a little bit off about them. As I'm playing them, I'm going it's cool, but it also feels like this is somebody that hasn't made a game before, or this is a team that hasn't been making a lot of games. Mm-hmm. It's kind of attempting at the game. There's some cool mechanics, but there's some stuff that foregrounds and backgrounds, they're not really that legible in a platformer game. A game designer wouldn't really go with these kind of decisions. Mm-hmm. The jump just feels heavy and unfloaty. There's a double jump, doesn't seem like it's doing that much purpose. If you die, you really just go back 2 seconds behind. All the gamey parts of the game goes I get what it's trying to do, but it's not hitting all the right notes, pun intended. And then, as I start playing the game more and more, I go whoever made this game is clearly a musician. And whoever made this game clearly has an understanding of what it's like to be on stage. It's kind of somehow through the writing of the game, the story, and the music, it can create that feeling of I know what it's like to be rocking out to a certain extent. And then the story of this game describes, even in the most depends on where you stand on it, but in a very interesting way. It felt like it's a discovery journey of a musician trying to find their sound. Mm-hmm. Ultimately. And it takes you through this game through a very artistic exploration. So as I played this, mechanically it's kind of clunky, but the overall experience felt visceral, very personal, and a little bit of it felt a bit authorship kind of thing. Though I don't really like to use that word.
Right.
But it felt like this is somebody translating their own a personal life experience into a video game.
Yeah.
Then the credits rolled, and lo and behold, creative director is this guy called Johnny Galvatron. Galvatron.
It's such a cool
And I'm
name.
okay, Johnny Galvatron, interesting. Then written by Johnny Galvatron, all right, okay, right. Yep. What I was talking about is coming into life. Then music. Also by Johnny Galvatron.
Yep.
Then I looked that guy up because I was there can't be that many Galvatrons in the world. So I googled the dude,
It
and
has
it
to be
turns
a
out
stage name. That can't be his real name.
he had a band called the Galvatrons. He's actually a musician.
Yes, he is.
He is a musician first, and then was like, "I'd like to make a game," and this was their first game.
Huh.
Right.
So, like, a lot of what this game ended up being makes a lot of sense to who that person is.
It's kind of like Rockstar, where they were, musicians who wanted to make a game too when they started out. There's some
I
parallels
didn't
there.
know that.
It's funny because I think he did an interview where he said that Francis, the main character, that's the character you're supposed to you relate to, right? And that's just him when he was like a teenager.
Hmm.
And then you've got the light man, right?
Yeah,
Who's more like he's older and somewhat cynical, and that's him now.
yeah,
And I thought that was really cool because it kind of feels like they're mirrors of each other. The one is like idealistic and youthful and naive and doesn't really understand yet what he's doing, and the other has seen it all and is kind of over the peak
yeah.
and is trying to reinvent who he is, but can't go through that same journey as Francis is. Yeah, it resonated with me. Obviously, I'm not a musician, but you go through a very similar trip if you do game development, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're a designer or a creator of any kind, I think you recognize that feeling of pressure of needing to be something. We've talked about this on the podcast, right? Like the doctor, engineer, lawyer, fitting who you're supposed to be and becoming who you are.
Yeah.
I think the game really took that metaphor really well. I didn't have that connection to like the stage presence
Yeah.
because when I go on a stage, there's like 75 game developers looking at me instead of like laser shows. But it was cool to sort of see that. I always regret that a little bit about game. No, regret is not the right word. I resent it a little bit about game development. Is that there's this moment as a musician or as a I don't know, as most things where you get to like really celebrate your work as creative. We don't really have that in games besides launching, but launching is kind of a private thing,
Yeah.
right? So we don't really have that like public facing moment, which maybe might be good because there's a lot of hate in the game space, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But
sometimes
at
you
the
don't want it.
yeah. At the same time, you kind of look at it and you go like, well, it's kind of weird that we built this work for like 3 to 5 years and then we launch it quietly and go have like
Yeah.
party with the team. Like,
Yeah.
I think the closest thing we get to that is when we're showing the game in an exhibition or like
Right,
like
yes.
an E3 or a Gamescom or something like this, and you're around the booth and you see people playing your game,
That's my
or
favorite.
watching people on Twitch or YouTube reacting to your game. That's
That's some good
probably the
stuff.
closest we can get to that. But it's not like an artist in an opening of his gallery or a writer
Right.
on a book signing tour or a
My-
musician going on stage.
But
It's a
at the
different.
same time, like the nature of how a dev team is, especially bigger teams. Like for smaller teams, maybe that's not the case, but especially for bigger teams, how are you going to celebrate evenly the work of 400, 500,
Right.
in some cases, thousands of people who worked on a project?
Yeah.
Like that stage scenario that you're describing that a musician gets, that's very hard. And
Right, but then
if
at
you-
the same time, there's a lot of people behind the stage musician, right? That we
Yeah.
never get to celebrate either.
it's true.
It's-
I still don't think it's as many people as
Right. No, it isn't. It clearly isn't. I think the moment I had in my career that was closest was on Nuclear Throne. There was a YouTuber, a Twitch streamer, a Star was his name, Stare, and he would come by the booth at PAX, and we became friends, and we just talked a lot about the game while we were developing it. And Nuclear Throne was developed over time, right? So it was built for rapid iteration. Because we would release an update every week. We would live stream development every week. And one night I dropped into his live stream and he was playing the game and he was complaining about the frame rate. And I explained that the game had like a static frame rate because my co-founder back in the time, Jan Willem Nijman, he hadn't coded the game for variable time step. So if you doubled the frame rate, you actually doubled the speed of the game, right? So Star was complaining about it. And I'm like, no, here, let me show you. And I just sent him a build where the game was twice as fast. And then he played it, and it was obviously ridiculous. The game wasn't balanced for that. So then we started doing random stuff, and I just started adding like weapons that were over the top. I made a gun that shot a nuke, and then every second the nuke would split into 3 nukes, and then eventually I added lasers to the nukes and lightning storms and cannons that shot bullets that then shot bullets, and eventually I added disco effects to the lasers. So eventually the entire screen just turned white, and I think that is the most public I've been able to celebrate game development. Was just showing people how ridiculous game development is, and it's one of my favorite industry memories ever. Is just sitting there and just jamming on something really really silly.
That's funny. But it's
With an
it's a lot
audience.
like you're also showing the process of game development
Right.
rather than celebrating the final outcome, I guess.
I guess that's where musicians have a little bit more freedom, right? You can go on a stage and jam a little. You can go on a stage and go off, like off. You can do something
Off
else. You can
script.
yell. You can go off script in the lyrics. You can play something else. You can do a different version. You can improvise a little.
Hmm.
You can't do that with a game because the game is done
Yeah,
when it ships. Right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
untouchable at that point. It's
Yeah.
an interesting medium. I love working in this
And
medium, but
you're
the
not actually
Artful Escape,
sharing the moment with the players as well, unless you're actually
right?
playing with people. That's one thing that's missing because when you're on stage performing music, like I guess the parallel is when you record a music track and someone else listens to it at their home. It's the same as when you make a game and you release it. But when you're on stage, we don't have anything like that.
Right.
We don't have that moment.
There's not really performance to game development,
Yeah.
right? That's not an aspect that's there, and that's why I couldn't really relate to it in the Artful Escape, except for doing talks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, no laser shows, no intro music. I don't get to do the intro.
And
Yeah.
most
Maybe
of the
I should
time,
just
our
do the
audience
intro.
Yeah,
for
you should.
talks is most of the time the audience for talks are other developers. I don't know. In my case,
Right.
at least, like I've given a couple of talks to the general audience. Like I gave a TEDx talk at one point. That's an exception. Most of the time, it's other developers. It's not the same, right?
Yeah, or governments, or investors, or sometimes musea or general audience. But yeah,
Yeah.
either way, you don't get to come in with laser shows.
Yeah.
I once was asked whether I wanted a song to get on stage with. I don't remember what show it was, and I was like, I have never thought about this, and no, thank you. I regret that a little bit.
I think also like what I really liked about the Artful Escape is that it's also about fighting your own demons in order for you to create something. It's kind of
Right.
and like finding out your own sound and like you're like you might be destined to make folk music, but your own sound might be operatic metal guitar wailing solos, and that's your sound, and you should give into it. It's kind of relating to a book I'm currently reading called Courage to Create, and
Hmm.
it's like it's talking about like how it's kind of part of the artist's responsibility is to overcome their own doubt as they're like driving through their own personal journey. So
Right.
basically identifying the imposter syndrome as they're facing it and then overcoming it is part of the creative process itself. And
Yeah.
I think that was beautifully captured in this game as well, in which the protagonist is growing and trying to
Right.
find out his musical taste. And like the older cynical version of what that musician could be occasionally encourages him, discourages him. There's all sorts of events that are happening that are kind of standing in the way of that person discovering themselves musically.
I really thought that was the most powerful thing about the game is that you could see that Francis is on a path of overcoming who he has to be, but
Mhm.
Lightman has been who he is now so long that it also doesn't work anymore, and standing still is never the answer,
Yeah.
right? If you're a creative, I thought that was sort of the central message for me, was the central like learning that the game tried to communicate. I felt it was like wherever you are, standing still is not the solution, right? If you want to be a
Yeah.
creative, you got to move in a direction, whether that direction is scary, whether that direction is uncomfortable, or whether it's not what you're used to. You have to go in a direction because staying where you are it will never work.
Mhm.
I thought that was cool.
It's super cool. I think it did great. But like now, I think the interesting part of what I would look forward to after this game is what Galvatron is gonna come up with next.
Next,
right? Like
You
this
know,
is he put his heart and soul and and exposed a lot of who he is into this game. What would be the next one is going to be very interesting. Like this is why, like somebody said every person has a game in them.
Mhm.
right?
I kind of understand that because like how much of yourself can you put in how many video games
Mhm.
Right.
before you're like doing something else entirely.
I mean, there was this designer who did a game called Manifold Garden.
Yeah.
Mm.
William Cheer, incredible guy. But it was his first game as well, and it was incredibly him. And I asked him, like, what was before this, and he's like, I used to fold balloon animals. It's like,
Wow.
wait, what? And he's like, yeah. And then I wanted to make this game, and I'm like, okay,
That's,
that's incredible. What are you
that
gonna do
is
next? He's like, I
incredible.
don't know yet. And I
what
think that
what has he
it's
done since? I need to know.
I don't know. He launched the game, and I actually haven't asked him what he's going to do next. I'm very excited for the whatever it might be, but it might not. It might be in games. It might not be in games. I actually have no idea. But I feel like games are interesting because it feels like it feels like a is this weird? It kind of feels like a boss fight,
Mhm.
right? You can do writing, you can do music, you can do programming, you can do design, but game development is sort of like all of it combined together as like the final boss of a dungeon or something.
Mhm.
I think that's what I enjoy about it is you can some people can be good at all of it.
Mhm.
It's really hard to solo this boss, like it's I just really appreciate that about game development. I think in the end is that it's always such a team effort, or even for games that are made by single people, there's other people involved somehow.
Mhm.
You know, um, I don't know. I've always really appreciated that. I don't know. I'm not trying to say that game development is like harder or better or anything. It just feels like a very difficult task to combine all of these different abstract media into
Mhm.
one expression that is then coherent.
Well, it's hard to argue that game design is wider than the other mediums. It's
Mm,
actually, I mean, there's more variety in what fits into what could be defined as a game than anything else. A movie's a movie, a book is a book. Like a game can be so many different things. How you interface with it, what its goals are, what its that the actual platform, the medium itself, is so vast. So when you're saying a person can be good at all parts of it. It's possible. It's rare, but it's possible. A person can also lean in on the parts that they're good at, and it can lean away from the parts that they're less good at, and still make an
right.
epic game where every part of it is amazing because they just redefined what a game is for
Right.
themselves. And
I
just
actually,
defining what a game is hard enough compared to like a movie or a book or anything like that. Or
I actually think the Artful Escape is a great example of that.
yeah,
Mhm.
Right. Like because it's clear, like Fauzi said, it's clearly not a game designer's game.
no,
It's a creative's game. It's an artist's game. It's a musician's game. But in terms of like where the platform is that you have to jump on,
Yeah.
struggling with like sort of like the implications of game design as narrative. Like
hmm
there was actually okay. So this is a minor spoiler. Can we do like a 30-second spoiler segment?
sure,
I guess we can. Yeah.
All right. For people that don't want to hear this, Osama will put this in the show notes. I think. I
I
hope.
got you.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Uh, but it is your final warning. Spoilers. I think the most powerful narrative moment in that entire game, by far, is something I've never seen as a narrative moment in my life, which is the character creator.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. I agree.
That was brilliant.
That I love that.
Straight up brilliant. Like
Mhm.
the only reason because I enjoyed the Artful Escape, I thought it was really good,
Yeah.
but it wasn't anywhere near brilliant for me.
Yeah.
Right? Very good, enjoyed it a lot. But that character creator, that just shot it straight up into like this is brilliant.
Yeah.
This moment is memorable. I will remember this.
Yeah.
I feel like I really missed out, and now I'll definitely play the game.
That's true. That's true. I deliberately avoided speaking about it earlier because I didn't want to spoil it because it's such a surprising moment
Right.
as well.
Oh,
As it comes in, you're like, oh, okay. And then like it has a weighted feeling afterwards, which I thought was
Yeah.
great.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is where the spoilers end.
Yes. And I think it's also a good time for me to transition to the other game I want to speak about, which I
Yes.
imagine a lot of you guys have played.
yes.
So I downloaded and played Arcane Leon's new game, Deathloop. and
Yes,
I love it. I love it.
it's
It's fantastic.
very good.
It is. It is. I think the word I would like to use to describe it is it's so elegant
Mm.
in terms of like as I
Mm-hmm.
think about this, in terms of like this is a game that makes you want to use 4 to 5 maps of some sort, and you go like, how can I make a game about you using these maps and these weapons and these abilities in repeatedly in a way that will be still meaningful and would make sense within a narrative construct.
Okay,
So kind
okay.
of like I have this smaller budget to make this game, and I can only make 4 or 5 maps. I can only make these kinds of weapons, and I need to reuse a lot of the abilities that we've used in like our previous Dishonored games and stuff like that, and reuse a lot of the same tech. How can we make a game that has its own narrative hooks and it makes sense as its own story? And I think like they made a design that answers a lot of these questions.
Right. I don't think I would use elegant.
Oh.
I think it has moments of elegance, but I think at times it also is very notably clunky.
Hmm.
Right. A part of that is because it's a really hard design to communicate. Right.
Yeah.
Like the possibility space really balloons really quickly, and I think I would use economical.
Yeah, it works.
Right. It's a very economical game. It uses very few ingredients to very strong effect. Right.
Hmm.
I think the reason I don't use elegance is because you can kind of feel that in there still, right?
Hmm.
And it might just be the polish. It might be the way they wrapped up the game. Because let's be honest, the polish on the game is kind of clunky. The sort of like the load screens, the menus, the interfaces. It's all not flawless,
Hmm.
um, or not even good in some cases. But the core game loop is very well done. Obviously, like brilliant. Like the
Yeah.
it's simple. It's simple to understand when you understand it.
Maybe we should describe it to people listening.
Yeah, that sounds like
Yeah,
a good
I'm
idea.
I'm really sad that I'm not able to participate in this conversation because I was super excited for the game and I preloaded it, and then as soon as it became available, I got super busy and I barely played it. I played it for like maybe
Well,
an hour, max 2. I can't remember how long.
the good news is that the game it has nice narrative. I actually the narrative is one of my favorite things about it. It's very
Hmm.
confident. It's very loud. It's very unapologetic. But um, that's not the part that is interesting to talk about, even though it's very very good, right, Fuzzy?
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
systems of this game is what drives it for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it has an incredible sense of style. I love it.
Right.
Like, but that sense of style, you've seen it in the trailer. The game
Mhm.
delivers on it. You know that the music, the
Yeah,
characters, the art direction. It's
yeah.
all there. It's all in there. It's very strong.
I
It's a
love
game
the
that has
'60s aesthetic. I love the
exactly has a
voice
very strong
acting.
identity around that, and they've definitely deliver on it.
Right.
Yes.
But it's the mechanics,
Yes.
right? It's a core mechanic, which is relatively straightforward, right? You've got these various locations, and you, as the main character, um, Colt,
Cult.
you wanna you wanna achieve a certain number of goals before the day is over,
Hmm.
right? And you can try and solve those problems in different orders, but every time you complete a map, the day moves forward in time, right? So you're trying to create this optimal path from start to finish where you complete the objectives that you have to complete. And a large part of it is just experimenting. You're just experimenting in the maps, you're running around, you're trying to figure out what tools you can get, what stuff you can get,
Exploring.
exploring ways of like getting to people, figuring out where they are at what time, what their weak
Hey,
spots are.
you know what that reminds me of?
Hmm.
Dead Rising, the first Dead Rising. Is it similar to that? So Dead Rising, the world always plays out in a specific way, and what you're gaining mostly out of it is like the knowledge of what's happening where, like which survivors you get and which of uh, the villains, I guess, you know, the cinematic boss fight type things are happening where, and then when you die, you start over.
So it's a little bit of that, but then with a little bit of save the date or 12 minutes, like wrapped into it.
Wow. Okay.
uh, Which is actually, I found that very interesting that these two games came out so close to each other.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely a little bit of 12 minutes in Deathloop.
Yeah, it's the same kind of events kind of transpire, and how you interact with those events ultimately changes the outcome. And you need to keep on
Uh,
experimenting with how you can change the chain of events so that you can achieve the objective
Right.
of doing a series of things in the same day. So that's how you finish the game. Basically, is that you need to hit these targets all in the same day before it loops to break the loop.
hmm,
And to understand how to do that, you want to do it not in one day and just learn.
Yeah.
mhm.
Right. So you're going to go and be like, okay, I'm going to figure out what to do about this target. And you just spend a few loops, right? Like figuring out stuff, figuring out routes, figuring out where you can go, what stuff you need to do it, what kind of paths you have, what kind of enemies might be where. And you're just kind of learning. So it's this big jigsaw puzzle happening in your head as you're running around in what is effectively a Dishonored game, but 60s confidence instead of sort of like the beautiful, the same level of world building, honestly, in the Dishonored games. So I it's the kind of game where you play the how they introduce it is a large part of why it works, and I think the introduction is probably the opening introduction is probably one of the strongest points of the game.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like you just start the game and you like this is not a spoiler because it happens 4 seconds in, but it doesn't go well for you. Um, and then it doesn't go well for you again, and the game just kind of like explains how poorly things go for you. And I thought that was a really cool kickoff because you kind of have this level of what is it like? You want to oppose the game.
Hmm.
You really want to oppose the game, like right from the start. You're like, nope, nope, absolutely not. We're not gonna. This is not gonna happen again. And I think they do a really good job of setting you up with this sort of like, what's the English word? Like a recalcitrant, obstinate, like this very stubborn man as your avatar. To just be like, nope, I'm gonna do better than that.
Hmm.
And then you die in very very disappointing way. At least I do spend a lot of time at the bottom of anything with water. Um, very very unfortunate, but
So I have a question. I don't know if this counts as a spoiler or not, so I'll tag it retroactively. But I think I saw it in the trailers, and I knew about it before the game launched. But you're able to play multiplayer. You're able, if I'm not mistaken, to invade someone else's game and be an antagonist in the game.
Yes.
Did either of you interact with that gameplay in any way, either direction?
yeah,
Yeah.
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 How
For
was it?
sure.
it's
Is it
fun.
is it a gimmick? Is it important? Is it fun? Like,
It's not a gimmick. How do I say this? Like
It's
you
semi
see
gimmick,
it and
honestly.
you see that okay, like this is a clear Dark Souls inspiration. There's a bunch of Dark Souls inspiration in this game.
mhm,
Like there's this thing when you need to go back to where you died last time to collect the stuff that you had on you. So
mhm,
very clear Dark Souls inspirations there. And then there's this mechanic in which other players could invade your game at any point in time, and it becomes a hunter and the hunted kind of gameplay, in which the female character Juliana is trying to find you and shoot you. But if you shoot her, then you can loot and get a whole bunch of stuff that are useful. Um, I think in this game it's kind of different than Dark Souls, in which like the invading character is not always stronger than you are, which I found my experience in Dark Souls was. People that invaded me in Dark Souls just only made my life worse. In Deathloop, a lot of times I've been managed to come out on top and actually gained a bunch of benefits from that.
mhm.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm.
It is definitely something you don't see very often in games. So I was
You can
intrigued.
completely turn it off and have I would say, an uninterrupted and probably, yeah, I wouldn't say better, but like more of the similar experience without that feature entirely. You can't
Mhm.
turn it off.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a semi gimmick, right? It's cool enough when it happens. It's fun, but also it's weird in that it happens kind of at arbitrary times.
Mm.
right? And the way of getting away from it is usually easy. Like if you just don't want to engage, that's a thing you can do. Um, I had no particular feelings towards it. I think it's really fun to invade, more
Hmm.
so than to survive an invasion.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't make me want to keep the. It, I have no reason to keep it on. I don't feel like the game is better or more fun. I just am kind of. Part of me is kind of sad that they use that character that way
Mm.
because like she is a really cool character, but it kind of loses. I don't know. It lost a little bit of its shine for me really quickly.
Mm.
Because I wanna play the um I really want to play this game stealthily,
Mhm.
right? That's how I play Dishonored as well, and a Juliana player will definitely mess that up.
Intentionally, yeah.
Right, that's kind of the point of a Juliana is that she comes in and just starts wrecking stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, I didn't feel like there was a good cat and mouse kind of game going on. I didn't feel like it was like fun particularly, but it has this cool feeling of like, oh no, that's really nice. But I also only found it nice like 3 or 4 times. Maybe I'm just not that much of a roguelike player in that regard.
Mm. I think that's what I think is like one of the most difficult things about this game is that the trailer did an amazing job, but I can't imagine a trailer that can accurately explain what this game is just because it's so they're so nuanced. Like I thought it's gonna have a lot more roguelike elements to it
Right,
than it did going in. Um, and like the whole detective aspect of it, in which like I need to find out what happens where so that I'll be there at the right time, are these kinds of stuff. Like I didn't really get them from the trailer either, and I think even as I'm playing the game, they only became more clear to me what they are further into the game. So the more I played it, the more I kind of appreciated those smaller details, those 12 minutes aspects of the game, as you described them, Rami.
right,
Um, but like early on, a lot of these things I just didn't see.
right. Yeah,
So like
yeah.
I'm not still at the point that I think I've maybe played it 7 hours so far, so I haven't finished it yet. I'm at this point when I'm like I'm really excited to see more of how everything comes together. But there is also a part of me that goes like I'm not sure if I want to go in and do a couple of more loops of grinding similar stuff. Getting some
Right.
more elements to upgrade my skill or to keep a gun or something like that.
But that's actually a very valid way of playing, right?
Yeah,
Like that's actually what I find myself doing. I just hop in a loop and I just grind away a bit.
yeah.
Just get some better stuff to infuse and then go from there.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Almost like
Right.
leveling up my character, so to say,
Right.
by make sure that I have all the beefy stuff good to go before
Yep.
I attempt that final run, I guess.
Mhm.
I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed at one point I noticed that I was trying to unlock something and I needed a code for it.
Mm.
And I had written down that code, right, from a previous loop and it had changed.
Oh no.
Oh.
And I was like, wait, what? So some stuff actually changes between the loops.
Okay.
So you can't necessarily like look up stuff. I think that's probably the goal, right? Because I remember there was this really hard puzzle back in Dishonored, and a lot of
Hmm.
people just kind of Googled the outcome.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think Arcane just did a little like,
No, the numbers are like so the key codes, all of them are generated for your game randomly.
right,
So they will stay. So the number for the same door stays the same number for the same door, I guess, but it's only unique to you. So
right.
the number for the same door for me is going to be different than
There's
the one for Osama.
right,
Wow.
but there's also actually like codes that seem to change.
Yeah, yeah.
So
There's some stuff later on that the security, like there's this person or security code that changes stuff. But if you kill
right,
that person at a specific time period, then
you can get the code.
or the code wouldn't change.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's fun.
There's a
I'm
bunch of
enjoying
these
it a
things.
lot.
There's a bunch of these
It's a
things.
lot of smart mechanical little things in the game, which
Yeah.
is really the joy of it. Is going like, did they do that? They did do that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, having a lot of fun with it.
There's a lot to explore. So I'm really looking forward to finishing it, really. I want to see how everything comes together as well. The power journey of me, like gaining those abilities and then gaining better guns, and then the loops becoming much easier, or like I start to feel like a real ninja.
Right.
It gets like much better. Like blink on top of a lamppost, jump and stealth kill two people, then link five people together and crack the neck of the other person, killing everybody. So like I can
Well,
like
those are
now.
all Dishonored
It's
abilities.
basically
That's what I'm
it is
telling you.
Dishonored.
Yes, Dishonored. It's like telling
It's
you, like,
Dishonored.
how can you make a game that is only four maps using all the mechanics from Dishonored,
Wow.
um, and still make sense narratively?
Yeah,
So I see what
yeah.
you mean by elegant now, the use of
Yes,
that word.
They,
Okay.
they, they basically got 10 really good voice actors, a really good art team, and then 4 maps.
yeah.
Wow.
I could imagine, myself being in that situation of like I'm being brought into a room and go like, here's your creative brief. This is your budget. This is the people you get. This is the assets that you can create. Make a game out of it, kind of
Yep,
thing.
Wow. Yeah.
yep. They
Yeah.
did it.
It's
They
They
did
it's
made
it.
it very
They
good.
really did. To be honest, I prefer this to Dishonored.
hmm.
I'm a little bit in the middle still, but I think as the puzzle comes together more for me, I might lean that way.
Aesthetically,
Uh,
maybe like the
oh
characters.
yeah,
I like the characters a lot more. I like the
yeah.
world a lot more.
But I think it's mostly because this is fresh,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
think I like Dishonored, and I think I like Dishonored more when Dishonored just came out.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
because that was fresh back then. It was kind of new, this weird, like gothic inspired, like big old city, wheels everywhere. Things are like grim and dead, and Deathloop is just kind of like, lol.
Yeah, I mean
Right.
it's not my take on Dishonored in Absolution as what I feel about Dishonored in comparison to Deathloop. So
hmm
like this studio's creations, Deathloop is my favorite. I
Okay. Well,
think
I think aesthetically, it might very well end
aesthetically
up
speaking,
being,
yes.
yeah, it might very well end up being. But for now, I just really enjoy it because it's kind of optimistic in a weird way,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of miss that in video games.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the sense that like, okay, yeah, things are bad, but if we just kind of work at it, they'll get better.
There's
You
a
know,
there's a party going on.
yeah, this is a great time. Like everybody's having a blast.
Yeah,
Um, I really like Colt and Juliana.
yeah,
They're great characters. Like,
yeah.
you know, if that isn't up for like character of the year kind of stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who is gonna be because it is hard to beat these two.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that all pan out. But yeah, no, great game, having a good time with it.
Looking forward to hear Osama's.
Yeah, hopefully
hmm
this week will quiet down, so I'm able to give you a little bit more. I mean, like I said, I played the opening sequence. I see a little bit of what you're talking about. I love the aesthetics choices. I actually fell in love with Colt right away. Juliana has potential. Uh, it's shaping up to be one of my favorite games of this year with just what I've seen and just what you've said. I just really want to have the time soon to
Yeah,
explore
and
more.
maybe when you play it, I can watch Shang-Chi, so you have something to talk about as well.
Yes, yes. Although I'm forgetting it, I think I have to watch it again now.
Oh, okay, the
Well, it's been like
the
ages.
worst, the worst. Did you play anything else, Osama?
I actually, again, I sampled one other game, but it was just a sample, not enough to be able to talk about it. It's oh man, what was it called? It was a pixel art game that came out on Game Pass. That looked really exciting. Let me find the name. It's Flynn, Son of Crimson. Um,
Uh huh.
so I didn't play it long enough to give too much of an opinion. So I'll just talk about the aesthetic. The pixel art is gorgeous. It's really really good. As far as platforming goes, sorry, as far as gameplay goes, it was just a simple platformer from what I saw. There was no twist yet. So
Right.
I'm holding my breath. I'm waiting that to see if it improves over time. But I'm
Looks
really
beautiful.
excited to. Oh, it was
It
really
is.
really good looking. But like nothing happened that we haven't seen in games before Yet. So I'm waiting to see. Hopefully next week I'll be able to report on it and let you know what I think about it. If I have time after finishing the Artful Escape, because I really definitely have to try that, and Deathloop, because oh my god, I've been waiting for this game for so long now. Uh, it's a good time to be a gamer. There are too many options. Too
Yeah.
many options.
I suggest, just as an industry sort of like, what was the title they gave me at GDC? Ambassador. As an industry ambassador,
Yes.
I suggest that we spread out our launches a bit more.
Yeah.
As an industry-wide mandate, like,
Yeah.
how did I not have anything to play for 4 months and now I have 6 games to play in 1 week?
Yeah. Tell me about it.
This is some nonsense.
Well,
I get it.
2020 was a tough year for game development, man.
Yeah,
I get it.
really was.
But also, Yanni, come on.
Yeah.
Like, just put anything near, a little closer.
Oh,
a little closer.
Deathloop was supposed to come out in May, you know.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
So
yeah.
like a
Yeah.
bunch
No,
of
it
games
was-
that were supposed to come out earlier in the year get pushed.
But let's be honest, this happens every year.
Yeah.
You have December, and then, okay, December 25 games come out, and then in February you finish the last one of the 25, and then March to April there's nothing happening, and then May something happens again. And then by the time we're in like September, you're playing 24 games at once.
Yes. You don't have
I
time
played-
for any of them.
I also played WarioWare.
Oh, I played WarioWare as well.
Did you like it?
You know what, Rami? Like I thought about you the whole time. I remember you not liking it,
Right.
but I kind of did like it. It's a WarioWare game, but like before you needed to figure out how to play the game, the micro game, and then being able to do it as quick as possible. So you need to figure
Right.
out what the mechanic is, and then figure out what the objective is,
Right.
and you have 10 seconds. And this one,
Yes.
because you've selected the character beforehand, and every character have a set of mechanics, then you know what the mechanics are when the micro game is starting. But you still have
Right.
to figure out the winning objective.
Right.
And I think that, remove that element of like trying to figure out the mechanic earlier, sure. In some cases, it was worse than before. But in a lot of cases, it removed that part in which like, have I known what I'm supposed to do, I wouldn't have lost this micro game that all the Warrior
Right.
games of before had. So I kind of appreciate it, in fact.
Yeah, I don't.
I know.
I think for me the charm was that you would play a minigame and be like, what was I what huh?
Yeah.
And now it's just like, okay, I'm this. Like, I will say, so the one reason I want to go back to this game to discuss it a few more minutes is that I played it with a friend,
I was about to say the multiplayer. This one has multiplayer.
and the multiplayer is great.
The multiplayer is great.
But the multiplayer is mostly great because as soon as there's 2 characters, you go back to not necessarily knowing what you have to do. Not because you don't know what you have to do, but because the interaction between the 2 different characters is random.
Mhm.
And just I might be trying to get a hypnotizing clock to go left and right by shooting it, and the other person is trying to push it, and now there's chaos, and we fail,
Yeah.
despite both of us knowing what to do, but we hadn't figured out how to do it yet.
It's fun. It's
Right.
that kind of chaos is like I feel like it's signature Nintendo kind of multiplayer chaos.
I really, really enjoyed that
Yeah.
part. But as soon as I went back to single player, I'm like, this is just not what I want from a WarioWare. Like
I get it.
I'm selecting characters and like picking up strategies. For me, WarioWare is like brain is off.
Yeah.
Press the button. Press the button. Nope, that button. No, okay.
There is a part of me like and I appreciate that not everybody would feel the same way, but I appreciate the game sometimes not just for how they play, because I also appreciate them for how they were made. Because
Right.
I play a lot of games that way, and this WarioWare is a lot more difficult to make than all the previous WarioWares. In
Right,
which-
it is.
because this one, every micro game needs to be completely
to work
winnable with
for
the
every
same
character.
time zone, with time what do you call it, time limit to all the characters.
Yep.
So whatever input mechanisms you're using, or whatever the input mechanics are, you should be able to achieve the objective.
But here's the thing. That's why I find it less impressive.
Okay.
Because that's a lot of work for something that isn't actually more fun or interesting
Yeah, I agree.
than the original. Like, that's the thing. Every game has this sense of genericness to me.
Mm.
right? Like in
Yeah.
the old WarioWare, the games would go out there. You're like picking your nose. You're like chopping a block of wood. You're defusing a
Uh,
bomb. You're
this
and
one you're picking armpit hair. Does that
right,
count?
which I honestly thought that was fun, and it sustains that sense of randomness. But it can't help that at the end, every game in this one is kind of the same.
It's not as
Touch
crafted as
right,
the previous ones.
touch this, go there, or don't be there, right? And I feel like the old WarioWare was like tap buttons fast,
Yeah.
right? That game already can't really exist anymore in this one,
No. The previous ones relied a lot on almost touchscreens
right?
to
Yeah,
some extent, or like Wii based gestures.
right. Or on the Game Boy Advance version, just having weird buttons around that
Yeah.
you can press real fast,
Yeah.
right? I I don't know. I feel like this WarioWare is what you get when you try to make a WarioWare that is more consistent.
Yeah.
And I think the quality really went up a step, right? Like it's beautiful. There's like fun little stories. The
Mm.
world map is great. The amount of characters you get, the amount of mechanics, the ability to play every game with every character, really impressive.
Yeah.
Just for me, a worse game, which makes all that work feel like a bit of a. You could have just gone the easy way, yo, and that would have been better.
I think so. I agree with that. If they would have made a Wario game like all the previous ones, it would have been way less work for them and probably not have to risk the works for some people doesn't work for others.
Right.
But I genuinely think that creating those characters enabled them to be able to create multiplayer.
Right. I think that is true.
And if they didn't have those characters, the multiplayer wouldn't have existed in the same way.
Right.
So it's a trade off. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't get the levels to be as crafted as you would like them, Rami, because like in the previous Wario games, the games can only be crafted for that mechanics.
Yeah.
Like the level or the micro game was made around you touching the screen or using the direction buttons and all of this, whereas in this one the micro games are made so that you can use any character, so that inherently will have some kind of generic thing to them. But
Yeah.
now we can have multiplayer. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I look forward to the next one. Maybe they'll figure out how to make it more crafted again
Mm,
and keep the multiplayer.
yeah.
I don't know if it's impossible, right? If those goals just oppose each other, but I have a feeling that it's possible.
I think it most probably is possible, but this is like
The step there.
the first the quickest the first thing that'll come to mind in terms of how can I solve this issue,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Well, I look forward to their second attempt at it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I will say I'm only going to continue this game if the same friend is visiting,
Yeah.
because I don't see a reason to play it otherwise.
Yeah, with people is fun. It can't go up to 4
Right.
players.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Well, I'll get 4 friends over.
Yeah, exactly.
3 friends. I'll get 3 friends
It
over.
it is trying to move from being the quick thing you play on the bus sort of game to a party game.
Right.
So I feel like this is like how they're trying to transition the game, so to say.
I mean, it is more of a party game. It's just not what I wanted from WarioWare.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I
get it.
But inshallah khair, and it'll the next game.
Yeah.
This one I'll probably finish it as friends are over, but it definitely didn't have that staying power. I know I've been talking about spookware to like people's like
Yeah.
it's the fourth time you mention it.
right, but it was really odd playing that game and sort of keeping it next to WarioWare and just be like, no, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then have WarioWare and be like, no, that's more like Mario Party but weird, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It is what it is. It's not a bad game. It's beautifully made, but it's not what I had hoped for.
Yeah. It's definitely a departure from what the series is known for.
Right.
I appreciate
Hey.
it nonetheless. I still prefer the touchscreen ones to it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
I'm happy to be playing a Wario game still, like on the Switch.
Fair. Yeah.
I'd love.
don't know.
Hopefully, one day I'll get a Rhythm Paradise on the Switch as well. Because I
Hopefully
felt
they'll
like a
just
lot
bring
of
back
these
a lot
games are
stuff.
kind of like the Mario RPG games, the Rhythm Paradise games, the WarioWare games. Those are like the smaller portable games. But those
Right.
I enjoy a lot. So
Right.
I hope that they can still make them in the same way.
It seems like they're interested in doing it, so that's good
Yeah,
news.
I remember the studio that used to make the Mario RPG series shut down
Oh,
following the
really?
Switch release.
Huh.
But I wonder if, like, they'll move the production of that to another studio, because like there was there's the studio that made Mario Bowser's Inside Story, Dream Team, Mario and Luigi. I
Right.
love those games. They're very funny.
Hmm.
But it seems like they found themselves merging into the Paper Mario kind of world now. When like Paper
Right.
Mario is kind of having a lot of that type of writing, which I find hilarious. So.
Right. I didn't actually enjoy the latest Paper Mario that much, though.
I hear that from my friends about every Paper Mario that comes out.
Right.
Like I think since the first Paper Mario, Nintendo's never really managed
Managed to
to top
match it.
it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But
Oh,
the last Paper Mario I enjoyed. I think it was one of the best in a while. The 3DS one I did not
I
like that much.
I think I agree, but it still wasn't good for me.
Yeah, I get it.
It was okay. It had weird pacing issues mostly.
The
Very
combat
wonderful job.
the combat can kind of get annoying when you need to just line up the
Can
Goombas.
can combat is annoying.
Yes,
My God,
yes.
please make it stop. I I don't think I've ever played a game where it's like I will run by any enemy I can avoid at any given point always. I was so done with the combat. Like 4 hours in, I was like, if I never have to rotate a wheel again, my life will be so much better. But it was such a joyful world and
How
like so beautiful,
It's so endearing and so beautifully constructed, and it's
and
so
then they make
funny.
me rotate a wheel.
And
It's
the,
turn it left, turn it right.
I really think that those games are some of the best writing in video games,
Right.
because very few
Hmm.
games can like make me laugh out loud as I'm playing a game on my own, and those
Right.
games always manage to do that.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
But
not an easy thing to do. Like
no,
humor in games is very difficult.
the
Oh,
Treehouse guys and their translation is top notch.
right. Yeah, they do incredible work.
Yeah.
One more game I want to mention.
Oh,
Opus Echo of Starsong came out.
I saw you tweeting about this. It looks like my kind of game, but what is it?
So it is hard to explain. It's kind of a side scroller.
Okay.
It's kind of a puzzle game. It's kind of what do you call it? An interactive novel, visual novel.
Okay.
And it's a little bit of not quite a clicker game, but a game where you manage resources and explore places.
Oh my god, there's so many different things.
Yeah.
Right. So here's what happened. This is a team that I met years and years ago, and they've been making this series called the Opus series for years. They're based in Asia, in Taiwan, and they've been making this game for forever. The series,
Mhm.
to be precise, since forever, and the core sort of idea of them is that they're always very narrative heavy puzzle games,
Mhm.
and they used to be on mobile. And I played a prototype 7 years ago of a
Wow.
mobile game of theirs
Of this
called
game.
of an Opus game, right? Of the
One of
series,
them. How many of them are
right?
there?
I think there's three.
Three.
And this the first one I played was Opus The Day We Found Earth, I think.
Okay.
And it was this cute, charming little puzzle game on mobile that I thought, there's no way this is not going to do well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it did really well in Asia only.
Oh.
And it never made it across to anywhere in the West, right? And that was kind of heartbreaking to me because when I talked to them, they were like, "Hey, we really hope this game will come to the West." And we talked a little bit about like the press and like stuff like that. And I gave them the best advice I could give them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't. And it was such a powerful game. It was like, you don't expect a mobile puzzle game to make you sit there and like feel feelings
Yeah.
all that much. Some have done it, but this was really, really powerful.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, you know what? Let's just you keep going, right? Next game will break through. So they make a next game, didn't break through either. And then with this one, they said, okay, we're going to make a PC game.
Aha. So this one's on Steam.
This one is on Steam.
Okay.
And they start on it, and I've been helping them and talking with them, and sort of like, we've caught up every now and then on how things are going, and they've done everything right, everything right. And this is a wonderful game. I cannot stress how wonderful it is. I'm not part of the development team. I don't get any money for this, right? I've just literally talked to them because I feel so bad that every time they release these incredible games and just silence.
They're based in Taipei, you mentioned.
Yeah, in Taiwan.
Oh.
And it was just really weird to me that it reminded me of a large part of what I do is trying to help people in emerging territories, because it is just unfair.
It's not fair.
If you're in the West making games based on Western culture, on stories about, I don't know, somewhere in the US or in Canada or Europe or whatever, you're always going to have an advantage over somebody making a game from anywhere else. Because you have to explain the place, you have to explain the culture. I think Echoes of Starsong is based on an old story, mythological story. Nobody would recognize that. You can make a story about any character from like European or US history, and people go like, "Oh, that's that story." Right? People would pick up the metaphor. People would pick up why you're using that story to tell this story. And for this, it's opaque to a lot of people, right? And especially in the press, which is exactly the kind of people that would normally write about a game like this, based on a literary tradition, wonderful, emotional, made by an interesting team. They just don't pick up on it. They don't see the value of the game, right? And it's really sad because it is genuinely a staggering game, right? It has a big storyline. It's an emotional storyline. It is a very interesting world, a very rich world. It's a story that plays out partially in the game and partially in your head. They do that really well, something that all best games do, I feel.
Absolutely.
It's stunning. The music is amazing. It has a little bit of that feeling of like a Final Fantasy story, like a good Final Fantasy story where you come in and it's this story about overcoming everything. But everything is not just an enemy. It's also partially you. It's partially the world. It's partially the systems that govern the world, They got their first like big Western review the other day. Over at Kotaku. And it is the happiest I've been in a long time, because these folks so deserved it. And it's wild because they still, like, even though Kotaku now wrote the review, they're still sitting at only 3 over at Metacritic, so they don't even have a Metascore yet.
That's heartbreaking.
Right? They just straight up don't have a Metascore.
That is heartbreaking. They are overwhelmingly positive on Steam.
Yeah, on Steam,
they're
killing it.
1,500
every
reviews.
time. Every person that plays these games goes, okay, yeah, this is special. And that was true for Opus. This was true already for The Day We Found Earth. It's true for Echo of Starsong. These are incredible games, and people are just missing out on it. They're just missing out on some of the best games that I've played on mobile. Now this incredible game on PC, and people are just not playing it because they're not being told about it.
Well, what can we do to get one more
discoverability
review?
is so difficult, man.
Just
one more review.
For
Are we
Metacritic.
opening a Habibis review website?
Let's do it.
Just subscribing it to. That's it.
This is going to be our only review for a long time.
This is our only review ever.
Send us
I wish I could
reviews
do
at
that.
info at
But yeah, if you are listening and you are looking for something truly special, I can really recommend Opus Echo of Starsong. Yes, I'm biased. Yes, I love the developers. Yes, I think they deserve much better than they've been given by the Western industry and the Western media. So maybe, isn't that kind of the point of the Habibis?
Yes, absolutely.
Fair enough. I just
not-
bought a copy, so
Good.
that should help. And like, should I do the Twitter comment thing and tell you? Can you tell them to make a Switch port?
Right. Yeah. Go for it. Like, genuinely, go for it.
I am the Twitter comment, the YouTube comment. Is this available
Right.
on Linux?
Yes. Yes. I will go apologize to the developers right now.
Apologize on my behalf.
Yeah. So can I get a Linux Switch port, please?
Can I play this on the Game Gear?
Yeah. I don't want a Linux port to be on Linux. I want you to make a Linux port and then port that one to Switch. I don't want a port of a Windows version on my Switch. That's disgusting. But yeah, Opus Echo of Starsong.
The mobile version, does it run on my Ouya?
Yeah, it will. It will. It absolutely
will.
should. It absolutely should. Do you still have an Ouya?
No, of course not.
I still have my Ouya. It's in a box in a closet somewhere.
I threw away mine a couple of moves ago.
I bought 2 Ouyas, and one of them I never opened.
Well, supporting the cause, huh?
Yeah, I was at the time. I really believed in it.
Same. I believed in it. I put Super Crate Box on the launch edition of the Ouya.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I did nothing, and then I just never talked about it again. Which I think is most people's attitude towards the Ouya.
Most people's feeling about the Ouya.
Yeah.
My memories of the Ouya was free food that they gave at the back of an E3. They were in a parking lot at an E3, and they were giving out free food or beverages. So that was great.
It was very helpful during E3.
It was very hot that day.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's how you do a good E3 boot is you have food and drinks. That's it. The game doesn't really matter.
They got me out of the convention center, so that's enough.
All that matters.
So I guess it's a good time to call it and give people a break from us.
Yes.
Right. Yes. That's more than enough. That's more than enough.
More than enough Habibis for one day. Go out there and get foods and beverages and other stuff. Instead of
by the time people listen to this, I'll have presented an orchestra up in the north of the Netherlands. And it's the first time I'm going back on a stage in a year and a half.
Wow.
And I must say, you looked really good in your suit, Rami.
Aww.
You should share those pictures once they're up.
Yeah, okay. I haven't seen it. Yeah, I want to see it.
I'll send it over.
Send us some photos.
I will send it to you. It'll be on my Twitter by now, I think, because I think I'll just have some photos from the event itself. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun shopping for a suit.
Wow.
I don't know. It always works. It always works well on me, suits. So
nice. I only have one suit.
You have one,
and I don't know where I put it.
I'm extremely Arab, I think. Like my dad was always like, "No, we're gonna get a suit. We're gonna get a tailor-made. I know just the guy."
Wow.
Right. So in Cairo, we would always know a guy that knew a guy that could make a suit happen.
So you're the guy that could take me suit shopping one day.
Yeah, oh yeah. If you're ever in the Netherlands, let me take you to my favorite suit store.
Okay.
They've been my provider for suits for like 7 years.
Oh, nice.
And they're incredible. They will adjust the suit. I had a problem with the suit in that I'm holding presenter cards.
Uh-huh.
So my right arm is like halfway up most of the time.
Okay.
And it was giving the one of the arms of the suit sort of like an ugly shape because it was like, doing the little, what is the word in English? Raffly? Like it had this weird wave in the material, right?
Like draping a bit.
Yeah. So they took off the arm, rotated it 1 centimeter forward, and put it back on.
That's the most cyberpunk
and now it's just clean.
The most cyberpunk statement of this podcast.
Right. But now it's clean. So when I'm holding the cards, it looks great.
Wow.
That's the kind of store they are. It's like you just go in, they measure it, they measure you, they make sure your suit fits you, looks good on you, help you pick out what the colors are, what the shirt is, what the shoes are, what the belt is, like everything. They help you sort of like design the suit, and then they make sure that it fits perfectly.
Wow, I'll take you up on that. That sounds.
And it reminds me of Egypt back in the days. So it's really nice to have that sort of like in the Netherlands because it's a little hard to travel to Cairo every time I need a suit.
Yeah,
I'm very excited to be on a stage. I'm a little nervous. I don't know. Like by now it's over. By the time people listen to it. But.
Wait, but you've been on you live on a stage.
I lived
Yes.
on a stage
It's been a
That's
with
couple of
like
years at least.
it's been a year and a half. Like the
Yeah.
last time I was on a stage was March of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
February 2020 for me.
Yeah, it's
think
September
January
2021.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've not been on a stage, and this is an orchestra, so I'm like very strictly timed to have like a minute and a half for each of my segments. I need to get my story out. It's in Dutch, which is not my public speaking
Yeah.
Yeah.
language either. I can't improvise on this one.
And it's an orchestra, so they can play the music that will shoo you off the stage themselves.
Right. They can do like a rim shot with really big, really good percussions. If I make a bad joke, there's gonna be a
It's gonna be
in
too
the
long. Hit
background.
the cymbals. Get the sky out of here.
So you have to do things like pronounce people's name correctly,
Oh no.
Yeah.
which there is some really hard names in composition. We're doing the guy that did the Witcher 3 Blood and Wine,
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
and his name, it's a Polish name, and it kind of goes Shibołowicz.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
But it's spelled like
how many Zs in that
BRZY
one? Yeah, I was about to
BY, the L with the dash through OWICZ. And I on my note, I just have written it as Shibołowicz. Right, just how you pronounce it
Yeah,
instead
just
of how it's
phonetically,
written.
Exactly. Transliterate it.
Oh man, that's gonna be hilarious. All right.
It's gonna be a thing.
Man, send us the photos. I'd love to see them.
We'll do. We'll
Good
do.
luck on stage. You're kick-ass. I'm pretty sure
Shukran.
you'll do
Shukran.
great as always.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
For Osama's sake, send us emails at info@thehabibis.com.
Please.
Osama will read
Please.
them and reply to you.
I have
This poor
been-
man.
I
This
have
poor
been-
man just wants emails.
He
That's
just
all.
wants the emails.
This is the tragedy of it all. I get way too many emails. I don't need more emails. I don't know why I got obsessed with asking
Osama
for
really needs more
He needs
emails.
more emails. Send him all the emails. He will review your games as well. So
Oh
send him
no!
reviews.
Don't
as
do
well.
that! Oh no! What are you signing me up for?
Right,
I don't have
don't-
time to finish Deathloop.
Don't send him reviews. Send the review copies to me.
Yeah.
Send Osama the email.
Send us some of the emails.
That's perfect.
But for the rest, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Habibis. But for the time being, salam.
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 That was the Habibis podcast for this week. I am Fawzi Masmar, your host for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Fawzi Masmar. My fellow Habibis were Osama Dorias, who you can find on Twitter at Osama Dorias, and Rami Ismail, who you can find on Twitter at THA_Rami. Send us your questions, stories, and suggestions via info@thehabibis.com. Intro and outro music was provided by Malik Zubayla, and the logo was provided by Ibrahim Hamdi. The Habibis is a weekly podcast about 3 game developers drinking good Arab tea, with new episodes launching every Friday, inshallah. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcasting service, or check out thehabibis.com for more information. Thank you for listening. Salam.